The Routiers were a typical family. They were young. Darlie was a stay-at-home mom and was very involved with her children, and they were just a normal family.
When I went to sleep, everything was perfect. When I woke up, it's been a nightmare.
It's Sully and Jones, and this is Kitchen Table Research, where we do the research so you don't have to. Today at KTR, we have special news. Our researcher, Johnson, who you've heard us talk about before, has decided to join us, and she's going to help present this 3-part special. So Johnson's also been obsessed with true crime her whole life and has a background in writing and criminal psychology. So she's going to bring her unique opinions, and she's also amazing at doing profiles. So we're really happy to have her on board. How you doing, Johnson? Are you out there? Can you hear me?
Hey,
how's
it going?
All right.
I'm here.
And guess what else Johnson has done for us? She's put together a website, and as soon as we have that information ready, we will definitely put it out there into the universe. But for now, we have put together evidentiary photos on our story section of our Instagram page, and we are also now live on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook and search Kitchen Table Research Podcast, you can follow along with the photos as we go. If you want to reach out to us directly or leave us a message, reach out to our email. It's kitchen.table.research@gmail.com. I'm really excited to present this case today, and so Johnson is going to lead us off.
So today we're going to tell you the story of Darlie Routier and what happened to her family on June 6, 1996. Her story is full of tragedy, betrayals, secrets, and a whole mess of conspiracies. So we made this a 3-part special. In this first episode, we're going to introduce you to the Routiers, or as I like to think of them, the Texan Kardashians. Then you'll get to hear about the crime and its aftermath. In the second episode, we're going to reenact portions of the trial for you. This death penalty trial was a convoluted mess, so we'll do our best to present evidence and theories, both old and new, in the most unbiased way we can. In the third episode, we'll talk about the suspects, poke holes in the case, and speculate wildly. So settle in and listen to Jones set the scene of the 1990s U.S.
In October of 1994, a man was found not guilty for murdering his wife Nicole and her friend Ron Goldman, and he walked out a free man from a first-degree murder charge. That man is, of course, O.J. Simpson. This case was nationally televised 24/7 on court TV, something that had never been done previously. This was one of the first big cases to rely on DNA evidence. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty despite millions of people's opinions that O.J. was in fact guilty of killing Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. Did this bias future juries to convict more often? Were they fearing letting the guilty go free? A lot of people are influenced by the legal phrase, quote, not guilty. While the term means that there's reasonable doubt, the semantics make it feel otherwise. In the summer of 1995, Susan Smith drove her and her children into a lake. She maintained they were abducted and pleaded with the public for the return of her children. As days went by, her story began to unravel, and eventually, Susan would confess to the murders of her 2 children. She was found guilty and is currently in prison somewhere in the Southeast. Did this media sensation perhaps influence the Routier trial? A similar case happens in December of 1996, when a 6-year-old girl was found gagged and murdered in the basement of her family home. When the girl's father was asked why he obtained legal counsel so quickly, he said, and I quote, "because of what happened to the woman in Texas." And he is referring to our case today, the Darlie Routier case.
All right, let's start this case at the beginning, as we always do. Darlie was born on January 4th, 1970, in Pennsylvania. But I think she was a through and through Texas girl. Darlie's mom, who everyone called Mama Darlie, divorced Darlie's biological dad and married her stepfather, Denny Key, and the three moved to Lubbock, Texas. There, Mama Darlie and Denny would have two more daughters named Dana and Danielle. Darlie's biological dad stayed behind in Pennsylvania. So, if you can't already tell, there's going to be a lot of D names in this story. We're going to help you guys keep them separate, but we might get confused as well. So, if we do, we'll try and point it out. So, during Darlie's childhood and early adolescence, all we can find is that she had a good upbringing. She had family support, she loved her family, and Mama Darlie would say she was not only a great daughter, but would become a great mother as well. She had never been in trouble with the law, and during our research, all we can find was a speeding ticket that happened about 6 months before the crime. Her stepfather, Denny Key, did try to touch her inappropriately as a child, we believe about once. But Darlie said something to Mama Darlie and had an open conversation within the family. The entire family were supportive during this time, and I think Darlie and Mama Darlie got some counseling. So we don't want to minimize this part of her childhood. September 15th, 1995, Darlie writes in her journal, quote, "I don't understand why Denny did it to me what he did. So it's very hard to try and forgive him. I know he must have had a dark secret that happened as a child, and I pray to the Lord that one day he will ask for true forgiveness for his own soul." So like we said, Darlie had a fairly normal background. Darlie's a normal, happy, and healthy person. There's nothing in her background that points to a woman who would later go on to commit this heinous crime. On our Robert O'Hare psychopathy tests, which our listeners have heard us talk about before, Darlie has a lower score than two of us out of the three. So you want to guess who those two people are? At any rate, I need to go post our Robert O'Hare psychopathy to our Instagram. That way you guys can look at it and you guys can use the scale as well. Okay, let's go back to the story. So the Key family is now living in Lubbock. The town of Lubbock houses Texas Tech University, and so during the semester, lots of young people are living in town. At this time, Texas Tech was an agricultural school, and the town of Lubbock was fairly small, with a population of around 170,000. And that population has almost tripled to date, partly due to the school, Texas Tech. Jones and I both went to Texas Tech. Go Raiders! It was a fantastic school, and it looks beautiful with its stucco buildings. The architecture is done in a Spanish style, and when dropped across a West Texas sunset, it truly is stunning. Jones has lived in Lubbock for quite a while longer than I have, but all in all, I mean, it's a college town. There's fun things to do there. There's lots of climbing and recreational things to do there as well. It's a nice town to live in, despite what other people might say. I enjoyed living in Lubbock. So not only is it beautiful, but the people are extremely friendly in Lubbock, especially when you're a person like Darlie. She wore short shorts and had a head full of bleach blonde hair. Darlie spent her early and teen years here, attending Monterey High School. At 15, Mama Darlie introduced her to 18-year-old Darlie Routier. Darren was tall, played football, which is a big thing in Texas, and he was a hard, motivated worker. But he was also kind of nerdy, and the blonde bombshell that was Darlie stole his heart. He doted on her and loved to show her off. Darlie at the time is described as sweet, thoughtful, she's a giving person. She always loved animals, babies, her family. Darren proposed to her on a ski lift in Purgatory, Colorado, and when she turned 18, with both sets of parents' full support and love, they got married. And I will say it's a little ironic that they get married in Purgatory. It'll make sense a little later. After the Routiers get married, they moved to Dallas. They were making pretty good money at their job in the computer hardware business. They both worked for a company called Qplex. Darren attends tech training school, and in his free time has started their own business in their apartment called Testneck. A friend that had worked with them at Qplex named Barbara Jovell, who will appear several times in this story, comes over to Test Neck with them when they open the business. They move their business into a building in 1992. Barbara met Darlie when she was about 16 or 17 while she was engaged to Darren, and she was actually Darlie's maid of honor. So at one time they were really close. When they opened that business, or when they open that building, they hire one of Darlie's sisters, Dana, along with Barbara. But during the time of the crime, they're not as friendly as they once were. We believe Barbara had gotten jealous that she did not make more money or was not given more percentage of the company that Darlie and Darren had opened. And as we stated, she's not going to testify the same character witness that all of the other Routier friends testified to at Darlie's defense. At Test Neck, Darlie works helping with administrative work like bookkeeping, and she has happy memories of her and Darren sitting in their small apartment, drilling holes and crimping wires while she was pregnant. After the Routiers' Jamaican honeymoon, Darlie gives birth to her first child, Devin, just 9 months after saying I do. Then she quickly gets pregnant again and delivers their second child, Damon, shortly after moving into their home that they had built in Rowlett, Texas in 1993. At this time, Rowlett had a population of about 45,000 and was considered a safe community where lots of young families chose to raise their children. It's close to Lake Ray Hubbard. It's an upscale eastern suburb of Dallas, and their house on Eagle Drive had a fountain in the front. It's a beautiful home, and Darlie enjoyed being a homemaker. They had made it. They had a boat, a Jaguar, a spa, and as we find out, $16,000 of Armani drapes hanging in their living room. They're a young couple doing really well, and they go on to have a third son named Drake. Darlie is doing the books for Test Neck when she can. She worked daily until Drake was born and then brought the baby to work often. So it's not like she's just some, bimbo housewife. I mean, I'm a housewife and all I do is watch like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Darlie, she's very smart and she's very loyal, and we can tell this by her background. Darlie liked having the boys, and she liked welcoming the neighborhood kids into her home. They called it the Nintendo house. Darlie's described as a generous person, paying for people's trips and meals, buying gifts. She donated and volunteered. And everybody loved the Routier home, and she loved having everybody there. According to family, she gave correct discipline to her boys. No one ever saw her do more than swat them on the butt or pinch their cheeks. But both boys were kind and well-behaved. Dion, who's Darlie's brother-in-law, describes Darlie as a good mom, quote, "She was always patient, reasonable, and spoke with them." He went on to say Darlie was a good wife. She loved Darren. One of the neighbors, William Grouch, who will testify, he has an 8-year-old son, Jonathan, who played with the Routier kids. They played between the backyard, side yards, and rode their bikes down the street they lived on, Eagle Drive. Parents would keep tabs on the kids, but they were not constantly watched. And I feel like this was normal for the 90s. I am actually almost down to the exact same day, the same age as Devin, their oldest child. We lived in this area. We lived in a safe suburb outside of Dallas. And the rule of our house was when it started getting dark and the street lamps went on, you went home.
So 1 month before the crime, Darlie developed suicidal ideations. Darlie wrote in her diary around this time that although she had everything in life she could want, she felt like something was missing and she had a lot of responsibility. Darlie had recently started weaning Drake, and as some of our listeners may know, this can cause your hormones to go haywire. Darlie testifies that the ideations lasted about 4 days, after which she got her first period since giving birth and immediately felt back to normal. Another thing bothering Darlie around this time was trying to lose the baby weight from having Drake, so she was on a low dose of drugs called fen-phen, which some people can assume is a crazy methamphetamine, but fen-phen side effects, especially at Darlie's dose, are not similar to what you would expect from an amphetamine. Jones has experience with all of these things.
Well, I know Jones breastfed me, and I think that you took Fen-Phen. Is that right, Jones?
I did take Fen-Phen. It was a few years after you had been born because I was having such a hard time taking off the baby weight. It works. For me, it was a good drug. I lost about 20 pounds on it. I'd take it again, although
wish
it's
I
been
could have
off the
it.
market because of some cardiac side effects. It did not make me crazy. You know, I think postpartum depression is a real and diagnosable illness. It's in the DSM-5. When you're weaning a baby, it's either easy or it's really hard. If Drake is crying out during the night, Darlie's milk will leak, and that can be really annoying.
According to family friend and coworker Barb, and only Barb, around the time before and after Drake was born in late 95, Darlie had told her that she would get in these moods where she felt weird and strange and would sometimes get upset and depressed, and Darlie didn't understand why. Here's an excerpt from Darlie's diary. September 7th, 1995. I have had 2 dreams about death in the past several months. Both times I was hesitant to go, but when I did, it was such a wonderful feeling, one that you cannot describe, and both times I felt I was going to be with the Lord. I don't know what these dreams are telling me. I only know that I'm not yet ready to leave my wonderful life here. Time will tell my story. For now I will close, but tomorrow is another day. Let it be a good one. Barb also said that Darlie had a temper, and when Darren wasn't helping out enough, her anxiety and depression were taking out on him. Again, this is according to Barb. Darlie had written in her journal about these feelings and spoke intently with Barb after she contemplated suicide 1 month before the crime. Barb had even told Darren that if they didn't address the issue, that something bad was going to happen. In his testimony, Darren will say that if he thought Darlie truly needed help, he would have gotten it for her. A lot of people say that Darlie attempted suicide, but from the evidence, we're going to call it an ideation and not an attempt. She had contemplated and wrote about her feelings and expressed them to Darren, but she never took actual steps to attempt. She had thought about taking over-the-counter sleeping pills, but she never actually did, and she called her husband immediately. This is what a psychologist, who will later testify on Darlie's behalf, describes as a cry for help to Darren. Also around this time, Darlie and Darren had withdrawn several loans for the Jag, the boat, the spa, and $10,000. Shortly before the crime, Darren was denied a loan in the amount of $5,000 to give Darlie a trip to Mexico. I don't know about you guys, but I don't spend $5,000 on a trip, so I don't know why he wanted that much.
Well, and I'm just curious, Mom, at this time, is it common to take out loans? Like, is it kind of how we use credit cards today? Because who would approve a loan for $5,000 for a vacation?
I don't think so. You know, I was well taught by my father not to spend money that I don't have. And so I used to keep a journal of everything that I charged to my credit card because I was trying to build a credit record. And so I think because their business was up and down, they would use these loans to go from a lull back to a high, pay the loan back, life would be good, then it'd drop again, they'd get another loan.
So it's kind of like using a credit card.
Up and down seesaw thing.
But yeah, it's like using a credit card, but they're having to go in and speak to a loan officer every time. Like that's, I don't know, that's, again, like you said, I was taught to not spend money I don't have, so.
Well, I've seen your credit card bill. I don't believe that.
Oh, burn!
So during the 2 months before the crime, someone is calling the Routiers at home. Darlie would answer, speaking into silence on the other end until she finally hung up. This happened a lot. While unusual, Darlie assumed it was neighborhood kids playing pranks. But considering what happens in June, this sends a shiver down my spine. In the weeks leading up to the crime, neighbors and family friends had noticed an unfamiliar black car in the neighborhood. The family friend and neighbor both state the black car looked to be surveilling the Routier house about a week prior to the crime. The driver was looking into the garage. After seeing this car once again the day before the crime in an alleyway next to the Routier garage where the children played, but there's no record of police responding to this information. Darlie shrugged this off like the phone calls, but a week later, 2 Routiers will be dead.
All right, so I'm going to get into the day of the crime. Most of this comes from testimony from within the family. At this point, we have Darlie and Darren. They live in their house in Rowlett. They have 3 boys. Her sister and one of her friends, they're kind of on the in and outs, work at their company. And so Darlie, the boys are out of school, and so Darlie is at home with the boys, I think for the next few weeks. The day of the crime, Darren's car is in the shop. He takes Darlie's Pathfinder to work. However, Barbara Jovell will also drop her mother off, Helena, who was helping Darlie do housework that morning, and then Barbara would go on to work. Helena, who will testify to, well, a lot, is going to be the colloquial Karen in this story. She's from Poland and needs a translator at trial, and I think either she truly does not like Darlie or the translation is just not coming through correctly. Darlie would pay Helena for 3 days' work around the house. And this is the first time they've made this arrangement, although they had spent some time together in the past because Helena is Darlie's good friend's mother. So Helena, who we're going to take with a grain of salt, will testify that while Darlie was holding 8-month-old Drake, his blankets had become wrapped around his face and that he wasn't breathing. So I know in some countries they don't swaddle. Also, when I read the babysitter's testimony, she said that the baby liked having his blankies up around his face. And at this time, he's really kind of past the major SIDS 1 to 6 month period. This is her 3rd child. I think that she has let go of some of those fears that first-time mothers have. Drake is swaddled with a blanket kind of over him, and he lays in the living room like that when Darlie is relaxing. Not only that, but Drake is, like I said, I think he's 7 to 8 months at this time. He's probably pulling up. He's pulling up on the glass table. He had fallen and hit his head. Again, like this is normal for babies that are trying to walk. And then she also will testify that the baby fell out of his high chair that day. And again, we're going to take her story with a grain of salt. And let me tell you a little story about when we were in Terralingua. It was me, my husband, my dad, and our 2-year-old. And my dad, I asked him the next morning, how did everything go? And he said, oh my gosh, I was at dinner and I turned my eye for a second to fill out the ticket, leave a tip and sign. And Mikey was rocking in his high chair to the point where he fell over. And my dad, the next day, he's like, I freaked out and I signed the check and I got out of there really fast. And I told him, I said, Dad, don't feel bad. I mean, little boys are crazy, but they fall out of high chairs. They fall while they're trying to walk. It's kind of normal. So a lot of people take Helena's testimony in the opposite direction and they give her a lot of credit. However, being the mother of a boy, I kind of understand that a lot of this is fairly normal. Let's go on. After the boys eat lunch, they go outside to play. Barbara had arrived back to the house by herself around 5:15. She opens a beer, but her mother is ready to leave. Helena also says Darlie was pacing, according to her, but in Darren's testimony, Darren says that Darlie was just putting all the laundry away that her and Helena had done that day. Helena states Darlie leaves the vacuum between the wine rack and the pantry, and she testifies to this where this vacuum is because this will be important later. Darlie had dinner cooking, she had a chicken soup, and so the 2 women go ahead and leave, Barbara and her mom, Helena. Barbara says when they got in the car, they saw a black sports car on the street, and someone got in and sped off. And Helena, this is the police report that you heard Johnson talk about earlier. Darlie's sister Dana had ridden home with Darren from work that day, and they arrived back at the house around 5:30, kind of passing Barb and Helena as they go. So at this time, we have Dana, Darlie, Darren, and the 3 boys in the house, and they sit down to have a family dinner. After dinner, Darren goes out to fix the gate because it was dragging on the ground. So he just was kind of sawing the bottom off so that it wouldn't get stuck when the boys tried to come in and out of it. And a neighbor will testify that he sees Darren outside fixing the gate. At this point, Darlie asks Darren to take Dana home around 9:30 or so. And remember, the Jag is in the shop, so Darren has to use Darlie's car. When he gets back to the home, he organizes for a garage sale they plan on having, and he goes in and he hides the stuff that he wants to keep that he doesn't want Darlie to know about. Also, at this point, we would really recommend going onto one of our social media places or just typing into Google the map of the house, because this becomes extremely important to the case. So it's a hot June in Texas. So Darren had raised one of the screened windows inside the garage about 6 to 8 inches. The screen is properly attached. Darren closed their garage door and locked it, but the backyard gate did not have a lock on it. The door between the garage and the laundry room was not locked, but the back sliding glass door, the front door, and all the windows except the one that Darren had cracked open are locked in the home. They had a security alarm however, they didn't have it set because it kept going off and waking up the baby, so they weren't using it at the time. Their full-blooded Persian cat is in his kennel in the family room. So at this time, the Routiers are also breeding Persian cats. And so this is the kennel that you'll see in photographs later. But their full-blooded Persian cat is in his kennel in the family room. And Darlie and the boys are laying down there. And Damon is playing with a kitten, and they're all watching TV. When Darren comes inside, Drake is on Darlie's chest, so he takes the baby to feed him and put him to sleep in his crib upstairs. He also grabs a pillow and blanket from the primary bedroom that they sleep in, and he gives her pillow and blanket on the couch. They have a conversation, and then he heads to bed around 1:30 a.m. An hour later, a 911 call is made.
So we want to just talk about the boys really quick. The oldest child, Devin Rush, was born in June 1989. He was described as a jokester, funny. He loved his dad and their matching jewelry. He loved water and could swim from birth, and he loved music, especially Gangster's Paradise, which he loved to sing along to. He loved his younger brothers. He was calm, sweet, polite, and smart. Devin had just finished first grade and gotten out of school for the summer when the crime occurred. The middle child, Damon Christian, was born in February of 1991. He was described as smart, but also more stubborn and moody. He also loved to swim, and he also loved his brothers. Drake was almost 8 months old when the crime happened and was described as a happy baby who also loved his siblings. I want to put a trigger warning in here because we're about to play a clip from a 911 call. And after that, we're going to describe the crime, which some listeners may find disturbing. So take care.
911, what is your emergency? Ma'am? What?
They just stabbed me and my kids, my little boys.
Who did?
My little boy's dying.
Stand by for medical emergency. Unknown medical emergency, 5801 Eagle Drive.
Oh my God.
Ma'am, I'm trying to get an ambulance to you.
Oh
Hang
my
on
God.
a minute.
My babies are dying. I thought he was dead. Oh my God.
Maybe
Who
it's a
was
possible
breathing?
stabbing.
Oh my God. What do we do? Oh my God. They just stabbed me and my kids, my little boys.
Who did?
My little boy is dying.
Stand by for medical emergency. Unknown medical emergency. 5801 Eagle Drive.
Oh my God. My
Ma'am,
babies
I'm
are
trying to get an
dying.
ambulance to you. Hang on a
I
minute.
thought he was dead. Oh my God. Who is breathing?
May it be a possible
Oh my
stabbing.
God. What do we do?
Darlie asked 911.
What do we do?
At this point, 911 believes there is only one child and has dispatched first responders. You can hear Darlie in the background say,
I saw them. I don't know who it was.
but it's hard to hear on the tape. Darlie just keeps repeating, "Oh my God."
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. My babies are dead.
911 realizes there are two children at this point. An officer named Waddell responds to the call, but he does not radio into the 911 operator. He's only a minute or two from the scene.
Oh my God. My babies are dead.
She's talking about Devin here, who took about 5 minutes to bleed out.
Damon, hold on.
She says her first child's been stabbed.
I saw them, Darren. Oh my God, they came in here, Darren. I don't know who it was. We gotta find out who it was.
You're going to have to slow down.
Oh my God, I'm
Calm
talking
down.
to my
Just
babies.
talk to me.
They're dying.
What's going on?
Somebody came in while I was sleeping. Me and my little boys were sleeping downstairs. Some man came in, stabbed me, stabbed my babies. I woke up. I was fine. He ran out through the garage, threw the knife down. My babies are dying. They're dead. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. What? No, my husband, he just ran downstairs. He's helping me, but they're dying. Oh my God, they're dead.
Okay. How many little boys is it? Is it two
There's
boys?
two of them. There's two of them. Oh my God, who would do this? I feel really bad. I think I'm dying.
Here, Darlie and Darren sound like they say the word Karen, maybe asking each other if one of them should run across the street to get their neighbor, who was a nurse. Darren will go get Karen after Officer Waddell is on the scene. Darlie says her husband just ran downstairs. Remember, it's only been about 2 minutes since the crime, and he's helping. We believe Darren is attempting CPR right now, but without luck. And Darlie says,
They're dying. They're dead. When are they going to be here? When are they going to be here?
Ma'am, they're on their way.
I just got to sit here forever. Oh my God, who would do this? Who would do this?
Ma'am, how old are your boys?
7 and 5. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, he's dead.
here 911 asks if their names are Darlie and Darren.
Yes, please hurry. God, they're taking forever.
Look for a rag.
The second officer, named Walling, is now on the scene.
They killed our babies.
Lay down.
No, he ran out. They ran out in the garage. I was sleeping.
911 does not realize that officers Waddell and Walling are already on the scene, and Darlie is talking to them about the perp fleeing through the garage.
Y'all look out in the garage. Look out in the garage. They left a knife laying on.
There's a knife? Don't touch anything.
I already touched it. I picked it up.
Now Officer Waddell does not realize that Darlie is speaking to 911.
Is there anybody out there yet?
Here 911 is speaking to Waddell, not to Darlie.
I don't know. I was sleeping.
Okay, ma'am, listen, there's a police officer at your front door. Is your front door unlocked?
Darlie is now confused because officers are already inside.
Yes, ma'am, but where's the ambulance? They're barely breathing. If you don't get here, they're going to be dead. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Okay, just sit down.
We believe the police officer is now speaking to Darlie.
What about you?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Who would do this? Why would they do this?
Okay, listen, ma'am, I need you to let the officers in the front door.
Again, 911 doesn't know that officers are on the scene. Officer Waddell tells Darlie to look for a rag, but Darlie says,
They killed our babies.
and he tells her to sit down because of the blood pouring out of her neck.
Lay down.
No, he ran out. They ran out the garage. I was sleeping. Y'all look out in the garage.
Here, y'all is referring to officers Waddell and Walling.
There's a knife? Don't touch anything.
I already picked it up, touched it.
She's responding to 911 here, and then Waddell asks if Darlie notices if anything is missing. Darlie says,
Oh my God, why would they do this?
Nothing's gone, Miss Routier?
Why would they do this?
Need to let the police officers in the front door.
Now it's 4 minutes into the 911 call. It's hard to tell who 911 is speaking to, who Darlie's replying to, what Waddell is saying. 911 is a little confused still if it's two boys and keeps asking Darlie to open the front door. It's unintelligible on the tape, but 911 then asks Darlie not to touch anything once again.
His knife was laying over there and I already picked it up.
It's okay. It's all right.
God, I bet if we could have gotten the prints, maybe. Somebody intentionally walked in here and did it, Darren. There's nothing touched.
Okay, ma'am.
There's nothing touched.
Ma'am, is the police officer
Yes.
there? Okay, go talk to him.
His knife was laying over there and I already picked it up. God, I bet if we could have just gotten the prints, maybe. Somebody who did it intentionally walked in here and did it, Darren.
As Officer Waddell comes onto the scene, it is pure chaos. Darren runs out to the fountain covered in blood and screaming, "Someone just killed my family." As Waddell enters the home, he sees Darlie in the entryway speaking to 911. He follows Darren into the family room and sees Devin, who appears to be dead. The other child, Damon, is still alive when Waddell approaches, lying between the family room and the entryway where the base of the stairs are located. He is laying face down with his little head tilted towards Darlie, clinging to life. Darlie, who doesn't know CPR, tells Damon to hold on, honey, and Damon replies, "Okay, Mommy." These are his last words. Darlie tells Waddell that an intruder left through the garage, so Waddell's first priority is to clear the scene. While he cannot do a full sweep without backup, he does walk through the kitchen, stepping over broken glass, and shines his flashlight into the garage. He sees no one and rejoins the family, telling Darren to go get their neighbor Karen, who is a nurse. EMTs have now arrived at the Routier home. EMT Byford declares 6-year-old Devin dead, and he will be left at the scene until morning, as his body is now evidence. Devin had abrasions on his hands, face, back, and legs, and broken blood vessels around his neck. He was stabbed twice in his chest. His pulmonary artery was hit, filling his lungs with blood. When his father attempted CPR, air and blood spurted out through the holes in his chest. Devin bled out within 5 to 7 minutes, and his official cause of death was sharp force trauma and exsanguination, which means severe blood loss. Darren doesn't give CPR to Damon because he's afraid that flipping Damon onto his back will cause more damage. EMT Colby goes to Damon, but when he turns him over to do CPR, he watches him take his last breath. Damon is rushed into an ambulance to begin life-saving measures and to get him out of the chaos that has ensued in the Routier home. 5-year-old Damon is declared dead on arrival at Baylor Hospital. Damon had 4 stab wounds and 2 incisions to his back and shoulders. He was able to walk and speak, but died about 10 minutes after the attack. His cause of death was also sharp force trauma and exsanguination. By the time Darren returns with Karen to the house, it has been declared a crime scene, and he cannot re-enter. EMTs give Drake to Karen, who they know personally. Darren stays with Darlie as EMT Kojak attends to her injuries on the front porch of the house. Darlie is wearing a blood-soaked nightshirt, and Darren asks her where her panties are. Darlie doesn't know, because she was wearing them when she went to sleep. She's then loaded into an ambulance and also taken to the Baylor Hospital in Dallas.
Around 4:45 a.m., Darlie is taken to surgery. We'll get technical with her injuries in episode 2, but for now we're going to just use layman's terms. Her throat has been slashed. She had a stab wound to her right forearm, bruising up and down both of her arms, and blood under her fingernails. She was wearing a locket that was embedded in the neck wound. Darlie is given a partial rape kit, and it's negative for semen. Partial means vaginal swabs are taken. A forensic rape exam includes bagging the hands and preserving any evidence on the body. This is not done. If you're going to do a full forensic rape exam, you're taking clippers and combs to scrape any evidence from the victim onto white sheets of paper, which are saved and bagged as evidence. They can take blood and other samples, but this full rape kit was not performed on Darlie, even though her panties are missing. And she also states that she had felt pressure in her pelvic area. Darlie's given a tox screen, which found only fen-phen in her system. After Darlie is released from the hospital on June the 8th, police escort the Routiers to the police station to answer more questions and write their statements. This makes them late for the vigil at the funeral home. Darlie's mom had bought her a black short-sleeved dress. Darlie wanted a long-sleeved dress to cover up the bruises, but that's not what Mama Key bought. The attendees witnessed Darlie's extensive bruising. The funeral director leads Darlie and Darren into the chapter. The funeral director leads Darlie and Darren into the chapel first to view the boys' bodies, and Darlie's wails are heard by other visitors awaiting the viewing. The vigil was held that late afternoon, and the boys' bodies were buried the next morning. Darren placed a pocket knife in the casket that the boys shared, and they were buried holding hands.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jones.
That following weekend, on June 14th, Darlie and Darren had a prayer service held at the gravesite where a pastor officiated and friends and family came to mourn the death of the boys. That graveside service was recorded. A microphone from Rowlett PD was placed in a bush near the grave, and the attendees and the pastor testified that Darlie was upset and cried throughout the prayer service. Devin had wanted nothing more in the world than to be 7 years old, and he asked Darlie every day if he was 7 yet. So his Aunt Dana suggested celebrating his birthday at the graveside. The family changed into more casual clothing and returned to the side of the grave to celebrate a 7-year-old's birthday. It was Dana's idea to use silly string since Devin loved it and played Gangster's Paradise by Coolio, which was one of Devin's favorite songs to dance to. The Routiers had called the media to film the birthday party, thinking it would help kids in the neighborhood feel safer. On this news footage, you can see Darlie spraying silly string and smacking gum. Mama Darlie had given Darlie gum because her mouth was dry, which was probably due to her crying or side effect of the high-dose antidepressants she'd been on since the murders. Barbara Jovell went to the birthday celebration, but not the prayer service. The prosecution states that she is Darlie's best friend, which is simply not true. Darlie, Darren, and Barbara had a bit of a falling out because Barbara thought she should be earning more hourly wage or be sharing in the profits. And during testimony, Barbara states Darlie was crying fake tears, acting for the camera, and only holding pictures of the boys when she was being filmed. She said Darlie was putting on quite the show. Actually, Darlie's best friend is Melanie Waite, who will testify for the defense during the trial. 4 days later, Darlie would be arrested on 2 counts of murder.
At approximately 10:20 p.m. this evening, investigators from the Rowlett Police Department arrested Darlie Routier. We believe that the white male suspect, described by Darlie Routier as the man that attacked her and murdered her children, never existed. We also believe that the wounds present on Darlie Routier were self-inflicted.
I swear I did not murder my children, I swear.
So we will see you guys on the next episode. We hope you guys stay safe. Been spending most of their lives living in a gangster's paradise. So this is going to be the end of episode 1. We originally were going to drop all 3 episodes at once, but we have decided that we want to go ahead and put out more content for you guys. And so we're going to release these one at a time, which is going to make it a little more mysterious from episode to episode. Unfortunately, I had a surgery that I had to recover quite extensively from that I wasn't expecting. And so again, like I had mentioned, I think in a previous episode, we were having some family issues and that was part of it. But, you know, I want you guys to know that I am good. I am healthy. I was just having really bad migraines and they went in and did a surgery. So like I said, I'm back to normal. I'm healthy. I had a good Christmas. I hope you all had a good Christmas as well. The second episode should be up within the next week or 2, and the third episode should follow that shortly. So the references that Kitchen Table Research used for this case, most of our information came from the site Darlie Facts, and that's where you can find all of the court transcripts. You can also find copies of the autopsy file. You can find all the police reports. You can find lead sheets. So we use that resource extensively because, like I said, I have been reading this court case since April of 2021, and I have completely read the pre-trial, the entire trial, and the post-trial, and some of her appeals. I also used 2020. They did a special I don't know, some years ago. It's really good. You can find it on YouTube. I think it's broken up into like 5 parts, but if you have 2020, I think it's on Hulu. You might be able to find the Darlie Routier case. I watched the Forensic Files, which talks heavily about Bevel and his blood splatter evidence. I also use True Crime Garage. You guys know that's one of my favorite podcasts. I also listen to Southern Fried True Crime because the podcaster on that podcast, she concludes a guilty verdict for Darlie. And so if you want to hear the other side of what we're going to present, I think Southern Fried True Crime is a great resource to listen to as well if you're interested in this case. Kathy Cruz wrote 2 books. Her original one was that Darlie was guilty. Her second one, after the trial went through, was that she was possibly innocent. There was a Dateline called To Purgatory. The Texas Monthly article, Maybe Darlie Didn't Do It. I also read some scientific articles pertaining to blood splatter and bruising, and that came from discovery.com/science/force. And I also used the website Engage Scholarships, or that pertain to DNA evidence. I also watched the ABC News special, which again is kind of like the 2020 news special. And I also watched The Entire Family on the Lisa Gibson Show, which was a talk show in the 90s. Again, we hope you all had a wonderful holiday. Stay tuned. Darlie Part 2 will be out soon. Bye.